The Libido Doctor is in.
Hello and welcome to Libido Doc, a place where we talk about human sexuality with a focus on married women. I'm Dr. Suzanne Belibi, and today I would like to talk about oral sex in marriage. First of all, what is the origin of oral pleasure? Sigmund Freud defines oral pleasure or oral stage as the stage in which we are from birth up to 1 year old. The mouth is the first organ of pleasure from the baby stage because when a child latches on the mother's nipples and gets nourishment from her breast, he has pleasure from that act. And it's also worth noticing that some nursing mothers can experience orgasm through breastfeeding. It's not really something that's talked about a lot, but it's experienced by many. So now, what is oral sex? What's the definition of oral sex? First of all, we have to remember that the mouth, right, the organ that's used for oral pleasure is the mouth. Therefore, we could say that oral sex is the act of using the mouth to achieve sexual pleasure. So now, what is the mouth comprised of? The mouth is comprised of the lips, the gums, the teeth, the vestibule, the oral cavity, the hollow cavity there, the palate, the hard palate, the soft palate, the salivary glands that are located under the tongue, and the tongue itself. So, when you use your mouth to give sexual pleasure, it can be something as common as kissing. Okay? Kissing, licking, blowing, sucking, and even talking sexy, because we use our vocal cords to express ourselves, our desires, and our feelings, and those can very much lead to sexual pleasure. Therefore, we've been practicing oral sex for a long time and every day. Now, the most commonly used or defined view of oral sex is when the mouth is used to stimulate the female vulva or cunnilingus and the male penis or fellatio. Okay? So, the question is, why is oral sex so pleasurable? And the answer is very simple. Because when God created us, He made sure that the concentration of nerve cells that are connected to the pleasure center in the brain are the maximum on those organs. So, on the glands of the penis, there are at least 4,000 nerve endings that connect to the pleasure center in the brain. And from the ending of the clitoris, the glands of the clitoris in women, there are more than 10,000 nerve endings that are dedicated for pleasure only. It has to be used, okay? So the other particularity on men is that most of the erogenous zones are focused around the penis, around his genitals. So it's very important for married women, for wives, to learn and to know how to stimulate their husband's genitals with their mouth. Okay? So, I have a disclaimer. I am spirit filled, born again, and nowhere in the Bible I did not see any verse that forbids married women to practice oral sex on their husbands or married men to practice oral sex on their wives. Therefore, I would like to encourage my fellow sisters to learn how to give pleasure to their husbands using their mouth. And another thing that I believe firmly is that when you see your husband as the king in your life, there are 3 ways you crown him. The first is in your heart. When you decide that this is the one, I love him and I adore him, therefore he's my king. The second way is when you say it, because out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And the third way you crown your king is when you use your mouth on his scepter. Very important. So, practicing fellatio on men is not for boyfriends, it's not for friends with benefits, it's not for friends, it's not for any casual oral sex. It's for husbands that are kings. Okay? I have to make that distinction because this is a subject I frequently have with my own children and my patients. Remember, I'm a pediatrician and I see a lot of teenagers, and part of my counseling with them is to talk about sex and talk about abstinence, talk about valuing their body, valuing who they are, especially the girls. Okay, so how do you prep for oral sex? First of all, cleanliness is key, is capital. You can take a shower before. If it's very spontaneous, let's say you're in the bed 5 a.m. and you get some tingling, well, you can go ahead and do that. He's your husband anyway, okay? So now, you still have to make sure that there is no lesions on the penis and you cannot see any cloudy discharge, yellowish, or something that's repelling, okay? You always have to make sure that both of you are safe. The type of germs that you can get through fellatio or oral sex or cunnilingus are chlamydia, gonocoque, herpes, HIV, syphilis. Those are the sexually transmitted diseases. And then hepatitis A can be contracted if you practice anal sex, like you take your tongue on the anus in that area. Not always, because if you clean and you don't have things like that, most of the time the transmission of diseases is very low. There's also bacterial vaginosis. It's not really a sexually transmitted disease. It usually occurs when the pH in the vagina changes and the regular bacteria and flora that reside in that area shifts. You tend to have more bacterial vaginosis, but usually we treat it as a sexually transmitted disease, but it's really not a big deal. Now, what about the techniques? The techniques vary. There are so many. And by the way, I've written a couple of books for men and for women on how to pleasure their spouses. Just learn how to pleasure each other and you will find the best for you guys. Okay? Well, thank you so much for listening and I'll see you next time. Bye.